Hello, my name is Mike Walker. I'm a machine learning specialist on the Google Cloud team. I've been with Google over 5 years, and my role is to help enterprise and startup companies on their journey to Google Cloud. Before Google, I worked at SAS on their customer intelligence team, and my role there was to help customers with their marketing and advertising use cases. And prior to SAS, I spent much of my career providing software products and services to help marketers be more effective. Today's lightning talk is anticipating audience needs and future trends through AI for startups. And for the context of this talk, the audience refers to your customers, your partners, any consumers of your service, or really anyone that you need to interact with for your startup. And I'll use the terms audience and customer interchangeably throughout the talk. As far as the needs that we're looking at, we're thinking of what are you actually going to provide to your audience? Is it a physical good? Is it services that you offer? Types of content, et cetera. And then the trends we're looking at are really just based on what's happened in the past. How do you predict your future interactions with your audience? So in my experience, the key to anticipating your audience needs and their future trends is to develop a deep understanding of who you are interacting with. Often this deep understanding is referred to as a single or 360-degree view of your customer. And today's consumers expect businesses to really know their customer. They want you to know their dislikes, their likes, their past purchases, et cetera. And they fully expect that you have that information readily available to you at any time. They're often willing to trade all that information for free services, but in turn, they expect you to use that data in a way that's going to help them, not just help the company directly. In turn, consumers expect one-to-one marketing, and some examples of where that is failing is when you see ads for products that you've already purchased a few weeks ago, or if you're seeing ads for like the wrong shoe types, like you always buy athletic shoes and they send you dress shoes, it kind of feels mismatched from what you're expecting. And consumers really, they've given you their information. They want you to leverage that for any time you interact with them. So the key is to know your audience and personalize their experience based on what you know about the audience. So next off, when you look at knowing your audience, it's been something that's a struggle for companies that have been around for a while. For example, a company that I used to work for that was several decades old, in their case, your email address was in a Oracle database in New Jersey, your physical address was in a mainframe in Florida, and your order history was in an SAP data warehouse in Germany. And so I've seen this for many other customers that I've worked with, that their data is often in silos and hard to get to. When I relocated to San Francisco recently and started working with more digital natives that have, typically been around for less than 10 years and use very modern technology stack, I thought this wouldn't be an issue. But it turns out, even in their case, they still have adopted, many different tools that don't either store data in a common database or have an easy integration into that common database. So that's something for you as startups have a real opportunity to outdo the established players in the market by doing a better job here, by knowing from the start that you want to make your data readily accessible to anyone that might want to use it within your company, conforming to privacy and things like that, but not creating new data silos right from the beginning, and trying to avoid ever doing that in the future is a real opportunity for startups to kind of leapfrog the competition there. Next, when considering your audience needs, it's probably self-evident that the more you know about the audience, the better you are able to anticipate their needs. That audiences have more choices than ever, and you need to help your audience find out what they want. Quite often, they don't even know what's available, so you're doing some awareness marketing kind of thing. And beyond that, they may be aware of your product, but there's so many other products or offerings that have similar to what you're offering that you just need to help them kind of narrow down what the choices are. So your job as a marketer is to reach them at the right time, the right place, with the right message. And this is really what marketers spend most of their time focused on: is increasing the return on ad spend or return on investment by reaching the right user at the right time. And you say, wait, I'm not a marketer, I'm in a startup. My job is to build great technology and everyone will come and buy it. And as reality, especially in a small startup, is that you are all marketers, you're all part of the sales team, because if you don't reach your audience, they're not aware of your product, they may never know about the great technology you developed. So while you are a startup and you can't fill all the roles, you kind of end up doing that just because of the nature of what's required in a startup, and know that you're all trying to grow your product's success. So next we'll look at using machine learning to understand your audience better and learn their needs. So how does machine learning help you know your audience needs? One example is regression algorithms, and those algorithms place a discrete number attribute for a user based on other known attributes. For example, lifetime value is something that a lot of times companies want to calculate, and that's where you determine what is the dollar value someone will spend with you over the life of interaction with that audience member. And that understanding helps you drive many other important decisions, like how much you're willing to spend to acquire a customer, as well as what you're willing to spend to keep a customer. Another example of a regression algorithm that you might want to do, or a prediction you want to do with regression, is what will the order size likely be, or how many of each product will someone buy? So you're essentially leveraging other people's past history to make a prediction about the current user you're looking at, and what kind of activities they'll take in a discrete number value that you want to determine. Another machine learning algorithm that could be applicable is your classification models. And they're used to predict basically labels about your audience. So is this person of your audience a big spender? Are they buying for a family versus individuals? And what are their interests? For example, like outdoor sports, like indoor sports, team sports, those kind of things. So you're labeling your audience based on what you know about them already, right? You may have some characteristics about their age, where they live. There may be other variables you don't know, and you want to leverage what you've learned from other customers or other people in your audience, and then make a prediction that's likely to apply, or a label that's likely to apply to these other audience members that you don't know quite as well. Another machine learning algorithm that's often employed in understanding your audience is clustering. And the way clustering works is you take a set of users and tell the algorithm, how many different clusters should I break the group into? And the algorithm will then find the similarities in the different users and then organize them accordingly. So in this example, we have 4 different clusters that your audience has been divided into. But for some use cases, you might need 10 different clusters, and for others, only 2. The algorithm just knows the goal is to divide it into a certain number of groups, and then find the similarities between the different audience members that put them in the appropriate groups. A nice bonus from doing this is you can actually tend to learn and enrich what you know about your audience by finding similar people. So while someone may not be in the same age and the same location in the country or the world, they may actually have a lot of similarities that you couldn't easily discern just by looking at reports or like spreadsheet data. This is where the clustering is finding those relationships that you might not otherwise anticipate. Next, looking at machine learning to predict your audience trends. The biggest one that comes into play is forecasting. Things like predicting the demand. The demand could be what is the infrastructure demand that you need from your audience, that you'll need to support your audience going forward using your applications or your website. It could also be looking at product availability over time and helping to determine how much lead time you'll need if you were developing physical products, or even if you had content, how long does it take to source different types of content for your blog page, or things like that. Using forecasting can really help determine what's going to be required in the future based on the past, as well as any trending that's happening within that, right? So if you delivered 1,000 last week, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to deliver 1,000 next week. It may mean that you're going to deliver higher or lower based on what the actual trends are for those individual products. Another type of ML that's can be leveraged in both needs and trends analysis is recommendations AI. And for that case, it's things like you're learning what others might like, frequently things that were bought together, recommended for you. And that could be influenced just on what's happening in the past and looking at other similar shoppers and things like that. It could also take into account the future trends to see like, okay, these topics or products are hot right now, so I want to factor that into the recommendations as well. So that kind of recommendations overlaps both historical as well as future predictions. Digging a little bit more into why accurate forecasting is so important, it's because you don't have enough supply and therefore you're missing revenue opportunities, or you have too much supply and you're essentially overspending on things you didn't need to do. It could be physical products that are stored in a warehouse and not getting sold, or it could be that you created a bunch of content that no one's actually looking at or consuming in any way. So getting the forecast to match the supply correctly is a critical part of most businesses, and something that, while there has been statistical models in the past that help with this, there's been great improvements on the machine learning and deep neural net side to help make even better predictions with forecasting going forward. Next, we'll look at tools that enable machine learning in Google Cloud. To do any type of machine learning, you're going to need some data. And for example, you can't really do trend analysis very well without history. If you don't have an entire year's worth of data, it's hard to predict how different holidays and seasonal weather and things like that would affect your trends going forward. And so with that in mind, I advise startups to always collect and keep everything, even if you don't know how you're going to use it just yet. For example, I worked with a company recently that has over 10 years of image data that they never really leveraged fully, but they have it all available, so they can easily start building models with that data right away. They don't have to start collecting that data and then later wait a year of collecting the data before they can build useful models with it. And so the bottom line is just definitely, everything starts with data. Make sure you collect it and keep it. It's relatively cheap to store data these days, so you're better off keeping it than having to need it later and not have it available. And secondly, where you can put that data once you have captured it, a good place for tabular data is BigQuery. And if you have other data like images and videos, et cetera, you can store those in Google Cloud Storage. Another place to capture great data is in the Google Analytics which is a free service that ties into your websites and your apps. And that's a way to learn quite a bit about your audience. And quite often, analytics data is useful for other machine learning applications. Once you've stored this data and you want to start investigating the data, a great place to start there is using Data Studio. Data Studio is a free product, and probably the best free product out there to be able to build dashboards, reports, share information both internally and externally. It's very easy to use, has a great community base of users, and lots of good support options out there, even though it's a free product. Definitely encourage you to start with Data Studio to learn more about your data, start to spot trends, and then when you start to want to be able to answer questions that are not really readily available to be answered from reporting, that's where you move on to things like machine learning. And if you store your data in BigQuery, you can leverage BQML directly within the database, write SQL queries to build machine learning models for all the things we talked about earlier in the talk, as well as many other types of models. You never have to extract your data, and you can do that all in a very cost-effective way. And without a lot of data science expertise, you can get some good value right away. If you decide that you need a higher degree of accuracy and you're willing to wait a little bit longer and perhaps pay a little bit more money, you can also try AutoML within the cloud, Google Cloud Technologies. And that offers a way to build models with your data where you don't necessarily know even what type of algorithm you want to use. It will iterate through different algorithms and options and find the best fit for your data based on the objective you described. And it's a point-and-click interface, so it's very easy for someone to use that not necessarily either SQL savvy or has a data science background. With that said, leveraging any data science skills or expertise that you have can definitely lead to even better results with both AutoML and BigQuery ML. Lastly, your call to action when you're trying to anticipate audience needs and future trends through AI is to, one, know your customer deeply. And to do that, you need to collect data, learn from it all you can with traditional tools like reports and spreadsheets, and then use machine learning to continue to expand your understanding of your customers. Google Cloud has tools that require less data science expertise to leverage machine learning and take advantage of the data that you've collected. And by understanding your customers better, you can interact with them in a direct, personalized manner, which will help you build relationships because it hits the mark on what they need now and into the future. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to answering any questions in the live Q&A.